good evening, depending on where you are joining us today. We have a very exciting special guest on our live stream, our Meet the Team live stream here. We have Wayne Holtham and Dean as well from our APAC region. They are joining us today to talk to us a little bit about digital transformation in the Asia Pacific region. So thank you so much for joining us, Wayne and Dean.
Hi, Kyla. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll learn a little bit more about them and a lot of what they do here at Third Stage. But for those of you watching, as always, we love to hear where you're from in the world. So just some logistics. We are streaming on LinkedIn and YouTube. You can type your comments on any one of those platforms and we will see them here. So all of our live streams are very engaging. The regional ones specifically, because we have lots of specific questions from our audience in these areas, which is a great opportunity to garner some insights from Wayne and Dean as well. So first piece of homework is just to drop where you are from in the chat there, so we can make sure that we're including all that in our relevant content. So Wayne and Dean, so let's jump in. Wayne, you head up our Asia Pacific office, APAC as we call it. And so where are you located and kind of what do you do as far as scope here in heading up that region?
Kyla, I'm based in Brisbane, Australia, and sort of my role is to be, we head up the APAC region, so we do everything that Third Stage does. So whether it's digital transformation, advice, whether it's change management, whether it's operating model, all of those sorts of services that Third Stage offers. So I'm fortunate enough, I'm probably old enough that I've had a fair bit of experience in those various different areas as we talk about digital transformation. So hopefully I can help as many clients as I can throughout our engagements that we seem to be having a fair few of.
Excellent. And Wayne is, a main contributor to a lot of our podcast and content, especially around system architecture and process mining. He has some great podcasts and keynotes as well. But Dean, I believe this is your debut on our Third Stage live stream. So welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about your role here at Third Stage and where you're located?
You're mute, Dean.
Yeah, I don't think we can hear you quite yet, Dean, but that's okay. We always love our technical difficulties on our live stream because it really just shows you that we really do this in a very authentic format. But Dean is out of Hong Kong and manages a lot of our Asian-specific business over there too. And excited to hear more about his background. So when you are ready to test your audio, just go ahead and talk over me, Dean. So Wayne, let's jump back to you real quick. Can you tell us kind of your resume in 60 seconds, if you will, kind of your background in digital transformation? Obviously, you're a veteran within the industry, which is why you head up this area specifically, which is very important for our client community.
I suppose I started off in the functional side where I worked as managers and whether it be a maintenance manager, whether it be a production manager in those roles. And so that gave me a basis of how things work. And then I got into the consulting space of digital transformation because all of a sudden technology became a big part of the way we work. And so I was a trainer at one stage. I've been involved in change manager, solution architecture. And so I've been fortunate enough to work in a number of these very large projects where you get exposure to all of the aspects of a digital transformation and what it takes, whether it be the people, whether it be cultural, whether it be organizational, whether it be training, whether it be just scoping out what you need to do. So for me, that's probably my background in 60 seconds, and it's probably 60 seconds to 60 years. So yeah.
Well, that's excellent. And does most of your experience, is it in kind of the Australia area, or have you worked with a lot of global organizations as well?
Worked with global organisations, probably where they touch on the oceanic region or Oceania, or there's a JPAC, which is the Japanese and Asia Pac areas. So mainly that's where I've worked in my space.
Excellent. And how are we doing over there, Dean? Can we hear you now? Nope, we still can't hear you, but I'm glad you can hear us. We're gonna have to get some subtitles for Dean, but he'll do most of the talking at the end now. So, Wayne, can you give us kind of a quick scope of some of the client work that you've done with Third Stage in the APAC region? What kind of projects are you working on?
Um, at the moment, it seems to be a fair bit of focus in manufacturing space. So whether it be food or whether it be industrial manufacturing, but previously to that, in probably the not too distant future, it's been in utilities. There's a big movement in utilities to move towards a better digital environment, leverage some of the advantages that digital offers, and they are massive projects. So we've been involved with a few of those as well. So, but in my background, resources and mining are also big areas which we've worked in with clients as well, sort of thing.
So, in addition to digital strategy and just overall technology advisement, what are some of the specific services you've been helping these clients with in those verticals?
Well, process mining is something that's evolved probably in recent years. We did process management or process understanding in the past, and now we've got some new technology that allows us to be able to do process mining. And so we've had some really great results about companies realizing how much their ERP is actually being used. Many times we actually look into the ERP and we find that people are doing lots on spreadsheets and lots of outside of the system and really only report to the system. And so if we're putting in a new system, we at least need them to actually work in the system to get value out of it. And so that's been one of the learnings from a few of our clients that have actually done the process mining space and really sort of understood how many different ways they do things. So that's been exciting for the client as much as for us to be able to reset an operating model, look at processes differently, and do those sorts of things for clients. So.
Yeah, that's excellent. Obviously, we know that that's a huge first step, right? Is establishing those processes in order to implement any new technology, or the new technology won't have any business value, to your point, and that data won't be actionable. So definitely understand that space. So let's go back over and test Dean again. Testing,
Can you
testing.
hear me now?
Yay!
Yes.
We can hear you. We did it. Excellent. Well, thank
That
you.
was my first time.
Yeah, right, right. Cut your teeth, and that everybody has to do that. That everybody needs a some sort of technical difficulty on their first live stream. Well, Dean, tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience, and your role here at Third Stage.
Yeah, so I just recently joined Third Stage. Really, it's been about 6 months now. I've been with Third Stage, so I'm based out of Hong Kong, but I'm originally from Canada. That's where I was born and raised. Did my studies there, and after graduating from industrial engineering, decided I didn't want to work right away, so I went to Asia, notably China, to actually learn Chinese. Although I'm from Chinese background, but I didn't master the language, especially Mandarin. So I decided to invest some time and to learn it properly. And my original plan was really to be there for a year and study the language and go back to Canada. But Asia being right now the land of opportunities and where the economy is growing, one thing led to another, and I've been here for the last 16 years, working as a consultant, especially a consultant in the ERP space. Have experience working in China, in Hong Kong, and also I spent 7 years in Bangladesh. And now I have this opportunity now with Third Stage to serve different clients, both in Asia and in the Asia Pacific region.
Excellent. Well, that's a really great kind of holistic background in the industry. We just recently on our sister podcast, Digital Stratosphere, interviewed an industry psychologist or an industrial psychologist. I'm sorry. So it was kind of an interesting piece from the engineering background and then the psychology background, which we know kind of that all goes into a digital transformation. So all of these new roles. But it's great to have you, Dean. And so can you tell us, kind of similar to what Wayne did, is just some of the industries that you've worked on for client work here and elsewhere, and some of the services that you've provided?
Right. In terms of digital transformation and technology implementation, my background is a lot focused on the supply chain area and the manufacturing areas. Really, when I was in Bangladesh, actually being a big hub for textiles, so I was very much in that field, especially in the garments and the textile industry. And that's where I really got a lot of my experience. And because over there is you have to start everything basically from scratch, where you have to develop that organizational change, that right org structure, set up the right roles and responsibilities, hire the right people for the right roles, let alone finding the right technology for for the organization. So there was a lot of that, I guess, industrial psychology piece that had to play, where it was more of a people kind of people management responsibility before. And I think that's extremely key in any organization.
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. So from a cultural perspective, and maybe we'll go back to you, Wayne, what are kind of the nuances of working on any sort of digital transformation, digital strategy, or technology implementation in the Asia Pacific area? Just because it's so diverse. There's a lot of different cultures there. I think way more than a lot of our other areas. So how do you take that into consideration?
Yeah, you make a good point, because many times we work with some of the global clients, and they've actually got various factories or facilities or instances in different regions within the APAC, and culturally they are so different, and the way they do things is so different. So the nuance is to be able to try and make sure that if you do try and centralize things, you don't lose the benefits of the particular culture that you're working with, because that's often the strength. And so you've got to sort of balance how you actually work with people to change the ways they do things, but also how you communicate with them so that they get the same sort of messaging that you're trying to be able to get across for this the best outcome for the ERP. So that's probably one of the really big challenges when it comes to APAC, is there's many countries that have really different cultural backgrounds.
Definitely. I could only imagine that would be, a significant challenge, but also a very interesting, opportunity to work with all of those different diverse cultures and learn about them, not only from a cultural perspective in actually socioeconomic, but also in, the business landscape. So, Dean, what about your supply chain background? I'm curious, obviously, right now, most of the Asian market has really experienced a lot of stress on their supply chain, textiles specifically, that we talk a lot about, as far as exports and dealing with that type of shipping issues. So, can you talk a little bit about kind of that current climate and how you've kind of helped work through it?
Well, supply chain always starts with good demand management. That's the first step. So an organization that can properly leverage information in order to develop a robust demand planning is the first key, because once you have a strong demand plan and you're taking all the considerations from the market, from your customers, and also aligning your customer supply chain with your supply chain is extremely key. So information is king. And once you have that information, it's accurate, and you have it early enough, it gives you enough time to support your manufacturing can support it, and your material management, your sourcing, your procurement can support that. So if you're running around and collecting information, and you have to put it into spreadsheets, and economic or market conditions are changing all the time, and you're not fast enough to react and to build your robust demand plans, then you're already late in the game compared to your competitors. So I would say the key thing is to have you have to have good people who know the market properly, but who know what are the key market drivers that's required to put into your forecasting framework, and then information can move quickly to the upper management to make the quick decisions, the quick trade-offs. For example, which product lines we want to drop and which product lines we should pursue, because we can't cover all of our bases. So then it's about dividing and conquer, really, and with that you need information.
And I assume with that information, that kind of goes into the process mining piece of it, and understanding, Wayne, kind of that data within the process piece of it to utilize that for that demand forecasting. Is that kind of how that works?
It is, because what it does, it points out where there are delays or where there's something which you had planned to come in or didn't come in the right way, has been delayed, and you can start to see what that is. And when you can see it, you can actually deal with it. When you can't, you react, and that's the problem that many businesses face, especially we look at the most recent 2 years where we've had disruptions in just logistics of trying to be able to get materials in or distribute materials out, and so being able to actually get a feel of how that's working, what we can do to actually improve that, is important. Process mining helps us understand that.
Absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense. So for going back to kind of that regional support structure, and knowing that a lot of those specific areas to support clients, it's been mostly remote. So how do you make sure that you achieve quality deliverables and work as a collaborative team in a remote environment? So Wayne, I'll let you kind of answer that one as the leader of the region, and then maybe Dean, you can provide some additional detail.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you would have thought back 3 years ago, you would have thought, how could you ever survive and grow as a remote business? We've in APAC, a couple of our clients have been based in Asia, and so we have been fully remote 100%. So it's using the electronic mediums that are available. So obviously being able to use Teams and all of those sort of things to great effect to be able to get engagement with the stakeholders. But it's also using things like electronic whiteboards and using surveys and using all of those other things that allow us now to be able to engage with the people that we're actually working with. And it's amazing how well the engagements have gone. Some of them have been as if you were sitting in the office next door, sort of thing. That's how well I've worked, and I think we've perfected globally. People have perfected the ability to not have to be sitting face to face anymore. So that it's been a great advantage for us in third stage, but it's also for the clients. All of a sudden, they can get really, really good specialist experience that doesn't have to be in their local area, sort of thing. And that's helpful when you get looking at that global, that wider range of experience that can be brought in by leveraging remote mediums.
Yeah, and Dean, what about your experience being in Asia physically? What has that been like to support your clients in still a lot of remote environments?
Well, of course, on a client's point of view, some clients are very comfortable in having consultants working remotely, and some clients are a bit hesitant about that fact. But I would say an advantage of being remote is you have to be extremely aware of the needs and requirements of your clients while you're interacting with them. And being aware is about really catching on the true essence of what they're going through, and using that in order to build, let's say, our workshops, our engagement sessions with them. And you really try to find the root of the problem, and then you develop what are the best practices from that root. And once you show what is the best practice way of doing things, then you really get incredible engagements from our stakeholders, because then they can start connecting the dots between best practice and their industry. And that's where the money is. And that's when we can start building the right, let's say, information design, the right functional architecture for our clients.
And when you mentioned something that I just want to kind of back up to talk about is specialists. So obviously both of you and our team at APAC have an excellent portfolio of experience. But what happens when a client comes to you and does need a specialist, say for data management, master data management, and that might not be something that's in your wheelhouse? Do you work outside of the APAC team? Will you bring someone maybe from third stage Africa or third stage Europe or North America into support?
Yeah, for sure. Recently, we had a working with a client, and the extra piece of work they asked us to do was in the HR space. And although I have a high-level understanding of HR, the in-depth that we needed, so we reached out to a colleague from Third Stage in the US, and they worked with the client to be able to help them with what they needed. So yeah, it's a great thing with Third Stage in the sense that we do have people globally spread. And because of remoteness, we can actually bring them into the client as if they were just, one of our team sort of thing, and which obviously they are, but it's in the different time zone that we can work around with. And so, we often get that call where we need a specific type, whether it be data, whether it be HR, whether it be those sorts of things that clients are looking for, and we do call out to our colleagues overseas.
Excellent. I think that's such a great kind of portfolio and opportunity, to work across time zones. And to me, that's the biggest benefit of being remote is you really can have the best people in the quote unquote figurative room, right? To be there to kind of advise for our overall clients. So I want to talk a little bit about APAC specific, some digital transformation trends. Obviously we've seen a lot with process mining. That's really become something that not only in APAC, but since you kind of had that up for us, Wayne, I want to talk a little bit about that. And so for process mining, it seems so simple, like it should have always been around, but it's kind of become a main trend that people are talking about with big data and moving into really the trend of data management. So can you explain to us on a baseline level what process mining is and what is the benefit of process mining?
Well, all of our digital platforms are based on data, and processes bring that data together. That joins the dots. The challenge we have is as we bring in more and more capability of digital transformation, people start to work how they think they should work. But that means they all work differently. And so the problem we have with ERP, it needs people to work consistently. And so process mining allows us to actually look at the fingerprints or the footprints that these people leave whenever they use the system, to be able to say, well, I left that, and that's actually different than what the previous person did, which isn't good for us. And so that's why process mining is helpful, because all of a sudden where we think we're doing a process the same way because we've got a high level view, we actually aren't. And so it helps the business go, well, that's somewhere that we could actually improve or get value out of our ERP, because the data is telling us that this is being done differently, or we have to change this, or it's causing this problem. And so it's like a crystal ball, which is, that's how I see it, is that thing I can look as a crystal ball into my business and actually see all of the things that are happening, and then deal with them as such. And whereas before it was like a guess, I didn't know. I was hoping what I was going to do would work for me.
And Dean, you touched on kind of the importance of that organizational change management, organizational design. How do you have kind of that manifest within your organization? I assume that would be kind of a hard conversation to have with employee A. I have all of this data from my process mining overall execution, and it's showing me that you're not actually doing the correct job. So how do you kind of move that from a process to a people environment?
Well, it's the information that connects the people together. And why, let's say, a specific individual is not doing the process together is probably because he's bombarded with a lot of information at the same time, and it takes time himself to be able to comprehend that information and to get it all sorted out and to move it to someone else to perform the task, for example. So that's where process mining can really help, because it really dissects where are the information bottlenecks happening in the organization. And that's a key thing, and that's really important. And just want to touch upon what Wayne was saying about process mining. Back in the days before process mining, it's organizations will hire consultants, or they would hire their own internal people to do a lot of process maps, right? And spend months and months, a lot of hours to do process maps. And then you ended up with like a book of all these swim lanes and stuff like that, who did what and when and so forth. But we chuck that out now, because everything is through that process mining solution, and gives you, first of all, an accurate representation of what's happening with the information flow. When you're doing all these process maps, you're getting information from stakeholders, right? And it's not necessarily, and those stakeholders are the ones who are actually performing the processes. So they would not necessarily say what's really wrong with the processes, because a lot of times they're doing it day in and day out, so they don't know what's best. So really, with the process mining, you have an authentic and accurate representation of how the process is actually being run in your system, and how to leverage that system and utilize that technology investment. Now, going back to what I was saying about the on the people side, so the key thing is, now you understand this information flow around that person it's no longer a black box. So now you can properly streamline that information and see and pinpoint those bottlenecks in that process, and provide clear roles and responsibilities to different individuals to join in that chain, so that responsibility becomes shared amongst the chain of stakeholders. And I think that's the key thing about the people side of it, is it's no longer, the process is no longer dependent on one specific person or one specific team. It's based on the scalability and repeatability of that process throughout the chain of individuals who play an equivalent role in it.
So what comes first, selecting a new technology or process mining?
It really does depend on the project itself and the size of the business. So sometimes there are smaller medium enterprises. Understanding what their requirements are and defining process, you don't necessarily need to go into the depth of process mining to be able to do that. But if you're in a large organization where you've had many ERPs over time, you're very diverse, then process mining really does add value, because all of a sudden you need to overcome the legacy of many years of people changing, adapting, adding extra processes and duplicating what they do, and so process mining becomes one of the benefits to say, well, now we understand what we do, then selecting the right solution is a good idea. But in the middle is that operating model. So out of process mining helps us say, well, here's how we want to operate in the future, and that will then help us guide what our solution selection might be. And so it does depend on the size of the organization and where they are. But for larger organizations, process mining to me is the must. It's one of those things that's vital. Whereas for the small to medium, it's understanding what they really need and then applying how good process will fit their requirements with a solution selection. So it really does depend. And we work with large and small clients.
Absolutely. I should have told you before we started, but I don't allow "it depends" answers, because Eric does them so much. You have to be at least 20 years into consulting, and you have to say "it depends" all the time, which he totally does. But that's usually every answer he has to my question. So I actually made it a trending hashtag on our one of our live streams recently. So one for you, Dean. What comes first, selecting a new technology or organizational design?
I believe it's organizational design, because organizational design actually takes longer to implement than technology. So in terms of duration, you need to have that organizational design plan already set in place and set in motion before you start your technology piece. That's in my opinion, and then the organization will be in a better position to embrace that new technology.
Absolutely. Well said, certainly. So in wrapping up in just our conversation here, we've covered a bunch of stuff, which gives us a great idea of, what to invite you back, both of you separately to talk about. How would people get in touch with you if they were in the Asia Pacific region or were interested in joining your team, Wayne?
They reach out via email. So we've got I'm sure we'll be able to put the contact details in here, but via email we respond, because obviously the different time zones, we can get things at all times. So, but we do respond to everyone that reaches out for asking a question, or even now as we're growing, it's about trying to find people that are looking for great opportunities to work with, what independent advisory does and consulting for clients, which is a little bit different than the normal consulting world, where you might work for one of the bigger players. So very interesting, as probably Dean will hopefully share with us. So contact via email is probably the easiest way. And so wayne.holtham@thirdstage-consulting.com.
Excellent. And Dean, that was kind of like a layup over to you. So what are your thoughts on on the independent and agnostic kind of consulting roles here at Third Stage?
Well, for me personally, I feel really comfortable in this space, because it allows someone who likes to touch upon different industries, learn different systems as well. It provides a really great platform, just to gain different types of experiences, instead of being stuck in some sort in one specific solution, for example. So you really get that reach of different types of clients, and every project is really different, right? So that's what I really enjoy about Third Stage. And every client's challenge is different. We might be starting with a client who's where we have to build their digital strategy. So that's aligning their executive team in terms of what they require in the next 5 to 10 years for their future technology. There are certain clients where we're coming in where they have already selected the technology and they need help to implement it. So in that readiness piece and that ERP implementation governance piece. So also within the whole journey, the ERP or digital transformation journey, you can come in at different points in a client's journey, and therefore you have to adapt in terms of where they are in their journey, and you have to learn quickly on what they've done, and what they can improve on to get things a lot of times back on track as well.
Absolutely. And I think you two kind of embody our main vision when it comes to the independence piece of it, as you touched on it multiple times, just the importance of the business goals and the overall purpose of the transformation, how it will create business value, as opposed to what solution they will choose. And I think a lot of times we can be more business advisors than technology advisors sometimes. And that's why the independence, because we really don't care what type of technology our clients choose, as long as it's going to bring value to their organization. And that's our key thesis here at Third Stage. But any final thoughts, Dean or Wayne, about kind of your work here at Third Stage and your regional location in our Asia Pacific market?
Only the fact it's growing and it's getting more and more each week or each day. There's actually new opportunities that come up, and so it's good to be able to work and see the different organisations that are reaching out based on what they're seeing Third Stage put out there as a message. And I think that message is it's nice to be able to bring that message to life for them. So
excellent.
Yeah, we're a growing organization, and if anyone has any questions or need advice, I mean, I'm glad to, if anyone can pin me on LinkedIn, that would be a great way to start a conversation. And if anyone is interested to get into consultancy, especially the type of consultancy that we provide at third stage, being totally industry and technology agnostic, and who wants to get into that in that space, and who likes to learn and to to cover a full spectrum of what is uh, business management consulting with that technology layer on top of it as well.
Excellent. Well said. Well, just a reminder for our audience, we do have work at thirdstage.com, or sorry, work at thirdstage-consulting.com, which Brisa can help us pop in the comments here. If you are looking for any additional advice, you can absolutely reach out to Wayne and Dean and connect with them on LinkedIn. They share a lot of our content here at Third Stage as well. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel because we do have an Asia Pacific regional playlist as well that we utilize for a lot of our client case studies. But thank you so much, Wayne and Dean, for joining us today. I'll also say we do have another regional live stream tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time in the US with our Third Stage Africa team. So a lot of cross-pollination between specifically those two teams, as we have many emerging markets, specializations within the area, and then technology specialties too. So tune into that tomorrow. You can set a reminder on the Third Stage YouTube page. But thank you, Wayne and Dean, again, and hopefully we'll have you back in different capacities throughout the next few months.
That'd be great.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having us, Tyler.
Kyla. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.